Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another interview on the Art of Intervention Project Summit. And our guest today, Dr. Cali Estes, she can talk about a lot of things in the addiction and recovery world. Today, we're going to be focusing on mindset and just living a transformational life. But Cali, when people say, who is Cali Estes, how do you respond to that?
Well, I've been called everything from the female Dr. Drew down to the battery recharger. So generally, I just say I'm somebody that can come in, that can help you unpause your life and help you get unstuck from whatever's holding you back.
Awesome. And you're coming to us from Florida, but you work with people all over the world, correct?
I do. International.
All right. So first, let's tell people, Cali, why the heck do you care about helping people get unstuck?
Well, this is one of the things I enjoy the most is helping somebody go from spinning the wheels and being stuck on a topic or stuck on a thing, whether it's business or personal relationships, addiction, whatever it is, and conquering it and harnessing their potential. I love watching people succeed and sort of like blowing up and doing something really cool because they have the potential within them. They just didn't know they had it.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you next, was just this thing of it's inside each one of us, but it's just buried by false beliefs and those things. And talking about, like, what do you see, because you work with a lot of people in in addictions and that are stuck. What are some of those big red flags that come up in their minds that they cannot get out from where they come?
Well, a lot of it has to do with they get stuck on the I'm an addict, I'm a junkie, therefore this is the best I'm going to be able to do. And I always say no. That, just saying I'm an addict holds you back from so much. You have addictive tendencies. They're always going to be there. You're always going to do something to excess, whether it's tattoos, jumping out of planes, exercise, whatever. Harness it and run with it. Don't make it a deficit. Make it a strength. And when I teach people to flip that, and get rid of that limiting belief, they stop and go, oh, wow, I can actually do that? And I say, yeah, why not? Well, I didn't think I could, but you could, and you try, and then you do, and you're like, wow, that's amazing.
And you look at your life now, and I know your story from not now in the past, but can you give people just a snapshot of what your life was like kind of growing up and how you got into your own recovery? Because we haven't talked a lot about the type of addiction you dealt with throughout the Art of Intervention project. So I'd love for people to kind of dive into that a little bit.
So my story is kind of unique. I didn't grow up with addiction in my family, but I grew up with mental health. My dad was bipolar. My grandmother was borderline. My mom had severe anxiety. So it was a very dysfunctional mess. And my father was very abusive. He would call me names like fat and stupid and say, you'll never go to college. You'll never be important. No one will ever date you. And he would beat me down and beat me down. And my mother never really stopped it. It was like she put little blinders on, and I just decided I didn't want to be in that environment. I didn't want to, live that self-fulfilling prophecy. And my mother's goal for me was to marry the local boy, get pregnant, work at the mall, make $10 an hour, call it a day. And I said, that's not me. That's my family's limiting belief telling me you're never smart enough to go to school. You're never going to be anything because our family doesn't do that. And I went, why not? And the answer was always, well, that's not who we are. I'm like, well, why aren't we? They never set the bar. So I thought, I'm going to set the bar and raise it. And when I did that, I got disowned fairly quickly because here I am out there, getting on TV and doing this kind of stuff. And I battled the food addiction. I had to get that under control. Doctor gave me diet pills. I got addicted to those. It was a mess. Like, how do you manage all this stuff? And then one day I sat down and went, well, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I am exactly what my family said, a nothing, a nobody. And I sat there and said, no, I'm going to conquer this. I'm going to conquer my food addiction. I'm going to conquer my diet pill addiction. And I'm going to make something in my life. And I did it. At one point, I had a fitness company, and it was worth $4.1 million in its third year. And a lot of people said, oh, my God, how'd you do that? Well, I didn't stop. I didn't stop and go, I can't. I stopped and went, what if I did? And the more I did, the better I got. And I really enjoyed teaching that to people. So after my first book, I Married a Junkie, people said, what's next? And I said, well, that's the question a lot of my clients ask me is, what's next? I'm sober, now what? So that's how the second book, the 7 Key Principles to Tap into the Wealth Inside You came out. It's all about the what's next piece in people's lives.
Nice. Let's get a close up of that book. Hold that book up by that. Let's get a look at that. Nice. And that's the great thing, you have these ideas and you come forth and say, I'm going to do it, instead of talking about, like, man, it'd be really nice to write. You skip the really nice to write and you go to write and you get things done. And so a couple things as we were kind of prepping for our interview and stuff, we were talking a little bit about like, how do you really stop a limiting belief?
Well, the first thing is you don't put energy into the limiting belief. So instead of sitting down and going, oh my goodness, I am this, you stop and go, those are just words, right? My parents said, I'm supposed to X. You don't X. You sit back and go, I want a Y. I want to do this instead. And then you take a look at the thing you want to do and say, what if I did this? What would it look like? So for me, the first one was, we don't go to college. I said, why not? We don't have the money. We can't afford it. So when I was a senior in high school, I applied for every grant I could come up with, everything I could find. I thought, I'm going to college. And I got into college and I didn't have the money to buy the books. So very few people know this. My first semester at Penn State, I had no textbooks because I couldn't buy them. And I just went to class, and one day my professor said, where is your book? And I said, I don't have any money. And he went, what? And I said, well, I got a loan and I got a grant, but they don't kick in for another month. And what do I do? And he says, I have an idea. And he sent me to the library and said, look this up. And I did, and lo and behold, I got a grant. It was called Blue Spruce, paid for all of my books, and I was like, wow, I can do this. It takes some digging and some resources and figuring it out, but I did it. And then once I did it, I went, well, if I can do that, I can do the next thing. I can go to the master's program. And again, I sat down and I went, I can't afford this. It's ridiculous, it's expensive, you know? And I wanted to go to Westchester, which is a private school. And I sat there and I said, okay, what am I gonna do? And again, I went to the school, and this is before the internet. I went to the school and I went in the library and I sat down and I started looking at what I could do, and they said apply for assistantship. So I went up against 30 other people to get assistantship, which is basically you go to school for free and you work it off. And I got it. 1 in 30, I got it. So my master's program was free. And everyone's like, well, how'd you do that? I wanted to go, I made it happen. I showed up every day for work in the econ department. And I even got to be part of a white paper, which was really cool. But it's the fact that you don't allow the chatter from the family members who want to hold you back because they're comfortable being low. If they pull you down, it makes it easy. If you're up here being successful, they have to raise their standard. They don't want to do that. So it's easier to keep you down than it is to bring them up.
I can see that completely in this world of addiction and families too, that just says, well, you know, Fred or Sarah or Mike or Christy, if those are any of your names, sorry about this, or whatever, you know, it's like, you can never, you're never going to break free from this addiction. You're always going to be a screw up. And the message is, so can you talk to families maybe right now that have a loved one that is suffering, and maybe the language they can use that might help bring about change to their loved one that doesn't believe in themselves?
So a lot of times in addiction, the fatal mistake families make is they get so angry because the loved one just can't put down the wine or the pipe or the needle or whatever, that they say, you're a junkie, you're stupid, you amounted to nothing, you're worthless. Well, here's what happens. The addict who already feels bad, they already feel guilt, they already feel shame, they already feel about this big, all you're doing is bringing them so far down, they're never gonna come out of it. It is completely counterproductive to what you're trying to do. So I tell families, and I work with a lot of families in family coaching, what do you say? You say things like, I love you, but I'm not gonna give you my love until you get help. Things like that. You don't give them negative. You just say, I really want to spend time with you and I want to show you how much I love you and how much I appreciate you, but you need to get this under control. And then you give them the resources to do it.
That's great. So it's all language is very important. Sorry, I had a little echo on that part there. So what I hear you saying through all this is that really the potential everyone has is truly inside of them. They just need the skills to develop and help bring it out.
Exactly. And sometimes the family around you is toxic and they have to be cut loose. I had to cut my father loose to be successful. And that sucks because every Father's Day and every birthday and all that kind of stuff, he's not around, but I couldn't keep him in my life and be successful because every time I would be successful, he would remind me, yeah, you did that, but it's cute you have a master's. It's cute you have a PhD, but meanwhile, he doesn't have either. And it was always to bring me down because his self-esteem was low instead of putting me up and say, you know what, I wish I could have done half of what you did. He never said that to me. So I had to say to myself, his opinion doesn't matter. And my mantra is, your opinion of me is none of my business. because there are people that hate what I do, that want to, go out there and say, you're a horrible person, you shouldn't be doing that. And then you look at what they've accomplished and it's not even close to what I've done. Well, that's not about me, that's about you. So I teach my clients that when people say nasty stuff to you, it has nothing to do with you. It's how they feel about themselves, and your level of success, it intimidates them.
So do you believe that individuals can love themselves again?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're listening to what other people are saying and what society say. If you think about it, and this is an example a lot of people understand. Look at the female role models for a second. We're looking at Kate Moss or Britney Spears, even the Kardashians, right? People say, oh, well, aren't they pretty? Aren't they, they're so talented. And then when you take the makeup away and you take the plastic surgery away and you look at what they used to look like, what they look like now, they're not even the same person, right? Because they transformed themselves to a different level. Now, people like it or hate it. They don't care. They're going to keep doing them, whether you like them or hate them, and they're still making money, still having a good time. You have to look at it that way. You don't have to be liked. You don't have to be loved. But if you love yourself, what other people say doesn't matter.
Very true. It's all about, you're with yourself all of the time. So a couple questions in your book that you wrote. What are some things people could expect to come out of, and how long? I'm asking you two questions. I don't like to stack questions, but what can they expect to come out of that? And how long can someone expect to really have this change of mindset?
So in the book, it's pretty cool. I have this little hand and I have an exercise throughout the book. So as you're going through, you'll see there's a hand and an exercise. And then it also takes you to a web page, and you can give this to your listeners too. It's free. If you go to unpauseyourlife.com, I have a bunch of free downloads that'll get you started in exercise to make yourself feel better. Limiting beliefs, there's a roadmap to success. We talk about just jumping, just doing it, versus thinking about it. We talk about money, because a lot of people say, well, I would do that, but I don't have the money. And then I ask them simple things like, what do you spend on Starbucks? They say, oh, well, I spend $7 a day at Starbucks. And I say, do 7 times 365. And they go, oh my goodness, there's the money to start my business, right? Oh, wow. So if I just made coffee at home for a little while, I could do that? Yeah. And that's in there, and how to get started and how to feel like you're accomplishing something, whether it's small or little. And then also finding your tribe. You may not be around the right people. You have to find the right people to be part of. So this is instant. Within the first chapter, I have you doing exercises to work on yourself, to get yourself out of your headspace. What was your second question? Because I forgot
it. Yeah, that's why I like to stack questions. The second question was, how long can someone actually expect to see a change in their mindset by doing some things that you coach them on?
If you start today, I tell people it takes 21 days to make a shift in your life. 21 days of doing the same activity. Within 21 days, you're going to feel comfortable doing those activities. So even though you're doing them in the beginning, they're going to feel odd. They're going to feel different. Like if I ask you, give me, 25 words to describe who you are, most people go, oh my goodness, I can do 5 words. But tomorrow you might go, oh, I have 2 more to add. And then a week later, you might have 5 more to add. And next thing you know, you have 25 words to describe who you are, and it took you a week to do it.
25 positive words. Amazing. Because I know coming, 19 years in recovery and having my own challenges in recovery, right, or 19 years from addiction, it took a while to get there. And even as life changes, right, because you might be helping someone that, say, you started working with them 3 or 4 years ago and they were single and now they're married and have kids, and different things come up in different people's lives, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And things change throughout time. So if you put goals in place 10 years ago, maybe they're not the same goals you have today, and maybe those goals shift and change as you go along. You may say to yourself, okay, by the time I'm 40, I want to have $1 million in the bank, write 4 books, be the CEO of a company, and you have these goals that are so high that you're 35 going, how am I going to do that? And then by 36, you're going, well, screw it, I'm never going to make it happen. Instead of just starting and even getting 1 book under your belt or anything, you go, my goals are too high, I quit. And then you're 40 going, it sucks, life sucks. So you have sometimes to take if you have big goals, break them into chunks. When I did my first book, I Married a Junkie, it took almost 3 years to get this done. And people were like, oh, well, you just pop that out. No, it took a long time to sit down and go, I got to get this done. And it was a difficult thing to write. And I learned typing and writing wasn't for me. So I researched, what could I do? And I did audio recordings of each chapter. And I sent them over to my publisher, and he cleaned them up and put them in a book and said, prove it. And I went, wow, what a concept. That took 6 months versus the 3 years of me jotting down ideas. I had sticky notes everywhere. It was a mess. He said, my job is to get you organized, hone it, and pop it out there. So if you can't get out of your own head, you find the people who can help you get down that path, because that's their duty. That's what they do well.
One of the things my wife has always said to me is, you should have taken typing skills when you were going through school, because I hate typing. And so that audio part, the verbal part, the creative part of the brain now that's freed up is incredible to do things like that. Can you share a couple stories with us maybe about how you've seen people's lives change that have like changed their mindset?
Yeah, so, okay, so I have a 25-year-old right now who's all of his parents and his brothers and sisters, so 6 of them are all engineers, top of the line engineers. This kid can't do math to save his life. I mean, it is just, he does math like I do, which is like adding numbers and letters. We're sitting there going, what's the point, right? So his parents they wanted him to be an engineer, and he's doing drugs. So I sat him down and I said, what do you want to do? He looks at me and he goes, I have no idea. And I said, you look exhausted. He said, all I hear about is how I can't be an engineer and how I can't do math and how I can't measure up. And I had him do the Myers-Briggs personality test just to see what he would be good at. And he comes back and he's all excited, a big smile. I said, what? He goes, it confirmed what I want to do, because he wouldn't tell me what it was. And I said, what? He goes, I want to be an attorney. And then he brought the test out and showed attorney. So I said, great, we're going to tell your mom and dad. And then he got real, head down, shoulders down. I said, what's wrong? He goes, they don't like attorneys. They're going to hate this. I said, it's not about them. It's about you. This is what you want to do. So I called mom and dad first, and I said, I'm going to tell you what he wants to do, and it's not an engineer. And you know what they said? Oh, thank God, because he's a horrible engineer. The message he was getting was, you need to do this, when the true message they were trying to send was, you're no good at this, pick something else. But they were crossing wires, and he heard, you'll never measure up, and mom and dad went, we don't understand why he's trying to be an engineer. He can't add numbers and letters, forget it. So they were so excited to hear he had another idea. So sometimes, and this is the story, what you hear and what's really happening are not the same thing. And someone like me that sees both sides can say, let's, get you both on the same page. And lo and behold, when he felt accepted by mom and dad and they lessened their stringent requirements, he stopped doing drugs. He said, I don't need to do drugs now. They accept me as I am. And that's a huge part of transformation and getting where you need to go.
That's a beautiful story. I mean, that's just a beautiful story. And I think about the false narratives that we put into our heads, right? Especially from our past of, I can't do this, I can't. They'll never think that, but that they weren't even thinking that anyway. So thanks for sharing that. That's a beautiful picture of just having authentic, vulnerable conversations with each other as well. So what would you say to our audience right now, and our viewers and listeners, wherever people are tapping in from, on what should they do or what could they do to take that step towards change?
So the first thing I say is you have to recognize what you want to change. It can't just be, I hate my life. Okay, what parts of your life do you want to change? What needs to be focused on, and write that down. And there's a wheel of life exercise. And if you go to unpauseyourlife.com, it's free. You can download it. It'll show you where you're out of balance. So you have relationship, you have career, you have family, you have health, you have all these things. You can't do everything. You're going to be out of balance somewhere, and you need to see where that is. You also need to know what you want to change. So I have people that come to me that say, I hate my job, I hate my life, I hate my husband, I hate my kids. I say, okay, well that's a little much. So what's the main function that you really hate? And if you changed one thing, would it make you a happy person? What is that one thing? I'll give you an example. I have a woman who came to me and said, I hate my entire life. And I said, okay, tell me what you changed first. And she goes, I'm a nurse. I hate nursing. There's nothing about it I like. I hate people, I hate everything, I hate being friendly. I said, what would you do? And she looked at me and she said, I want to own a dog walking and dog grooming business. I said, beautiful. How does that sound? And she goes, it sounds amazing. tells me all about how she wants to do it, and how happy she is, and her husband loves her, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, why can't you do it? And she goes, my husband hates dogs. I said, well, what does your company have to do with your husband? And she stopped and she went, nothing. I guess nothing. And she goes, well, I could be doing this. I said, absolutely. So she came back to the next session with a business plan and a business partner, and bam, she opened up a dog petting and sitting and grooming company, and it went skyrocket. It was huge. It made her more money than nursing. It made her happy. Her husband came in and he's like, I just need to give you a hug because I cannot believe the transformation and how happy my wife is. And it was just as simple as harnessing what she really wanted to do. And again, miscommunication. She thought, if I open this, he won't like it. And I said, you're very independent people. When we get married, we forget who we are. We forget the things we want to do. And we say, well, my spouse doesn't like that. Well, you're also an independent person from your spouse. You can do things without your spouse, and you can do things together.
So true. So true. Well, that is awesome. Thanks for everything you shared. I mean, I know it's going to touch a lot of people because again, it's this up here we got to get straightened out, and it's like a big spaghetti mess. So call you the head doctor maybe, or something like that too. How do people connect with you, Cali?
I'm easy. You can go to unpauseyourlife.com. You can go to theaddictionscoach.com. Dr. Cali Estes on Instagram, Cali Estes on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. Twitter is at The Addictions Co. Pretty much everywhere. You can Google me and give us a call. We're at 1-800-706-0318, and you can connect.
That is great. So you guys make sure you tap into the free gift Cali's offering as well today. And it's a great person to, again, get unstuck, unpause your life. Let's go forward. And you do that well. So thanks a bunch, Cali, for joining us today, and have an amazing afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.